Ladies and gentlemen, I think I have figured it out. My video will not be blurring and unblurring on y'all from this point forward. It was as simple as turning off the autofocus on the lens. I forgot there was lens control in correspondence to body control. That shows how long I've touched my camera. And I also found this cool little mic right here that you probably can't see, but if you enlarge the screen or full screen, you probably see it. So hopefully the video quality and the audio quality is better in this video. Yeah, so I was talking about making a video for a little while now about how a very particular game series has influenced my my taste in gaming, and actually other parts of my life as well, believe it or not. So I put a poll on the YouTube. Not a lot of y'all saw it. Some people voted. Somebody voted Final Fantasy, and you are wrong, unfortunately. It's not Final Fantasy series. It's actually The Legend of Zelda. So we grew up in my household with a lot of Nintendo consoles. We had a Sega Genesis, but not a Game Gear, but we definitely had the NES, the SNES, and the Game Boy growing up. And I wasn't introduced to the Legend of Zelda series formally until we had an N64. At that point, I didn't start with Ocarina of Time. We managed to get a copy of Link's Awakening on the Game Boy Color. I spent a lot of time on batteries, putting them in the freezer, you know, before we went to the dollar store or my uncle's shop down the road and get some batteries. So I spent a lot of money on batteries, or my parents did at least. And it was necessary because the game was kind of lengthy, and I never played a game that had the dynamics of Zelda, whereas in you're placed somewhere, you're given a general direction of where to go, and then you pursue that. You find places that you have access to, places that you don't have access to, and then you have to reference your inventory and what your capabilities are as well, in contrast to what the world has been what the world is providing for you via the locale of the respective Zelda game. So, you know, that was very unique for me. Plus the fact that a lot of game characters don't have voices, but in a game like Zelda where the environment is kind of alive, it's a little bit more known that you don't have a voice. People are talking to you, they're requesting things, you're doing objectives and stuff, and you're always going out and fulfilling these and, you know, doing fetch quests or going and figuring out a dungeon or whatever the case may be, or figuring out a puzzle or how to navigate something to get a heart container or whatever the case may be. And not having a voice in that matter really kind of helps you embody the character of Link, because you realize that a lot of what he is left to your imagination. That's not what's not provided. Whereas in the other characters in the game are provided dialogue to help build emotional ties or characteristics to let you know like what kind of person they are via dialogue and reactions and their animations, right? So that resonated with me a whole lot in playing through that game. Plus, getting all the instruments for the Windfish Egg and seeing how musicality, that's the first time where musicality was first introduced to me in gaming in a way that was integral to the story. And seeing how the song built on with the different instruments you unlocked to finally crack the Windfish Egg and complete the game. And then seeing that the game was basically alluded to a dream. There was a lot of things that I never experienced in gaming at that point that was introduced to me with playing The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. The top-down view and having the dungeons, these statements are kind of like universal towards any game in the Zelda series. Musicality as well, you know, moving forward, there was always instruments in the later games that you had to use for something, right? Or something that conducted the music, i.e. the Wind Waker, you had the conductor wand, so on and so forth. But one of the most rewarding things of the game for me was the increase in my vocabulary. I was young, and there was a lot of words that I didn't use on a daily basis. There were instruments that I didn't know about. I didn't know what a conch shell was. I knew of the seashell. I didn't know the particular term for that type of shell, the name of it. So, and then in the dungeons and stuff, you know, there was like certain words or certain things you had to do to navigate the dungeon to move forward. And then you looked out for those. It just built on previous concepts that you encountered, kind of like arithmetic, how you learn how to add, then you subtract, then you throw in variables and multiplication and division, and then it kind of all comes together to where anytime you are thrown in a situation, you know how to navigate that that problem given the formula, right? So it gave me a sense of accomplishment that I haven't had with any other game at that time. Most games in that era when I was playing them were, well, in that time frame of when the game was released, side scrollers. It was a puzzle game or a side scroller where you move left to right, or it was linear, or it was a rail game where you were automatically moved and you just had to navigate obstacles and enemies. So you knew all you had to do was evade and fire, or jump on an enemy's head, or get a fireball, or if it's Donkey Kong, you went up and knocked him off the thing by rescuing the princess, or Super Mario, you always go right. Beat 'em ups, you go to the right. Zelda wasn't that. They broke the formula up where you had these areas, and before you got the compass, you didn't know where to go or the map or whatever. And then even when you knew where to go, it wasn't always just as simple as going to that place. You had to know how to get in there, or what items you have that can enable you to get in there, if you even had it. And if you didn't at that point, you had to go back and find it, right? So with all that being said, that is one of the base premises of Zelda. And that's what really brought me into it. So I didn't know, just like much to people who played Final Fantasy at the time, I didn't know that the stories of Zelda were not specifically connected. However, they are, but they aren't. The relativity of Link, Zelda, the different races in the game, Ganon, Ganondorf, so on and so forth, Aghanim, and all that kind of stuff, that's relative. But the story itself is not organic to each game verbatim. So when I moved on to A Link to the Past, that felt more of like a build on to what I've played previously. It wasn't so different from Link's Awakening to me. It was a different story. It was a different view. It was the same perspective, the top down, bigger environment, better music, obviously. Color. Love the music. More items, and the dungeons did get a little bit trickier, but we'll skip over that because that was just like in between. But where the big leap came in, and where I think The Legend of Zelda was the most integral to me as a gamer and my upbringing, was Ocarina of Time. And I know all the time people are like, oh, everybody talks about Ocarina of Time, everybody talks about this game, why? Oh, it's not that great. Well, going back to the game now and playing other games in the genre or in the franchise, you'd go back to Ocarina of Time and be like, oh, you know what, this game isn't that great. But if you imagine it in the time frame, I think it was 1998, maybe? Whenever it came out. The 3D atmosphere and the musicality and the actual the part of just going into these dungeons and having to, when I experienced that playing a Zelda game in a 3D environment still held the same aesthetic of problem solving and dungeon crawling that the old ones did, it was such a breath of fresh air. And the musicality of it, and not having the internet available to know how to navigate dungeons and stuff. Quick tangent here. I feel like in gaming these days, we go to the internet so much to find out how to do things that it takes away from the concept of accomplishment, of actually beating a game or navigating a puzzle or a dungeon, or just completing a task that is otherwise impossible without figuring out the nuances to it. Back on subject. I didn't have that. They had strategy guides and stuff, but I always told myself I didn't want to use a strategy guide, because if I did, it took away from the concept of accomplishment that I valued from completing Zelda games, I just loved it, Ocarina of Time is just a staple moment in my gaming career where I just felt like I tackled something so big with the open world, how expansive it was, that every step of the way, defeating the dungeons and beating the bosses and traveling through time and fighting the Phantom Ganon and the Water Temple, riding the horse through the field and Gerudo Valley, and all of it was just so memorable. I think at that time in my life, I was around 12 or 13 years old, and I spent a lot of time with that game. So much to the point of where I was just like, it was almost like a part of my daily routine. I came home, I did my homework, I watched Toonami, then I played Zelda. And I realized that I was becoming very immersed in this game, more so than I have been before. And at that point, I knew that it was something special to me. Maybe you guys can understand or put it into better terms in the comments below, but there's just a certain vibe about a game that you play that just resonates with you on such a different level. And for me, that was Zelda. The character Link, I think has a lot of relativity to me, like in certain ways. I'm not the hero of time. but I would consider myself courageous. I'm very brave when it's time to do things that I am committed to, or, you know, I do have people who come to me for help. I'm committed to a cause, right? You know, I'm here again. Within a week or so, I'm gonna be consistent with the videos. Here's my cause, and I'm gonna keep doing it. And people have expectations of me to do things. I like to fulfill those expectations, not to the point of where I'm being used, but to the point of where they know my potential, right? And it seems like in every Zelda game, Link has his potential and he doesn't see it. He's just going with the flow and learning these things, and by the end of the game, he's killing Ganondorf or destroying this monster or resetting the timeline or whatever the case may be, right? Also, Link is alone a lot of the times. I wasn't alone all the time, but I did appreciate my alone time, and that's where I did the most reflection and the most gathering of my strength, which is kind of where I'm at in life right now, you know? Realizing who I am by faintly remembering who I was. That's where I'm at. And for reasons like that, that's how Link resonates with me in certain ways. He seems to have an appreciation for life and experiences and those who care about him. Although he has no dialogue, that's where you can kind of get the feel of like embodying personality traits of yourself in him. All we know is that he's a hero. However, you can't say that you've never played through a Zelda game and haven't attached a certain personality trait of yourself to Link. I'm pretty sure you have. And if not Zelda, then another game where the protagonist doesn't have any dialogue, just mild expressions and everything else is conveyed through you, the player. I don't want this video to go too long because I like to kind of keep my videos short as possible. I'm gonna end it off there. I'm glad that I was able to give you guys some insight towards one of my favorite video game series and why. I would love to hear about your favorite video game characters and or your favorite video game series and why it stuck with you through time. Why would you recommend this to anybody who considers himself a gamer, or to somebody who's new to gaming and you want them to get a very deep feel to understand the connection of gaming with gamers who you think wouldn't understand that? I'm excited to do these videos. I plan to be as consistent as possible. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any ideas for video games, or just videos in general for the future, please let me know in the comments below. I'm gonna post the links to all my socials. You can communicate with me there as well, whatever's more comfortable for you. I know some people don't use certain social platforms, so I made a platform on every social just for y'all, okay? I hope this video quality is a lot better than the last one. I'm pretty sure it is because I see myself in the lens, and I know that there's no blurriness. The focus is on point. The zoom is where it needs to be. There's more captured here in the background. And like I said, I'm a work in progress. And if you guys have any tips or tricks or anything for what I'm doing, or think that I could be doing things better, by all means, please let me know. I don't have an intro yet. I will be making an intro sometime here in the near future, just to give the videos a little bit more flow and something to expect when you load it up. But for videos like this that I do in one take, I just wanted to be genuine. Fade in, fade out. A little bit of music in the background. We're vibing, we're talking, I'm talking to y'all. Y'all listen to me. You go in the comments, sound off. I do respond. I'm a very social individual. But with all that being said, thanks for being here once again. I appreciate y'all stopping by the channel. For all those of you who are subscribed through my shorts, I appreciate y'all. And everybody who's been here since the beginning of my sporadic digital content creation career, thank you for sticking by. I'll talk to y'all later. Deuces.